My name is Echo Oliver, and I'm from St. Catharines, Ontario in Canada, and quilting unlocked my memory. My story is a bit of a miracle story. It goes from tragedy to a miraculous recovery. In 1963, when I was just 16 years old, I worked for one summer full-time and earned $485, and that was a lot of money in those days. And I spent the entire amount on buying a top-of-the-line Singer sewing machine. Along with my sewing machine came 10 weeks of sewing lessons. So I took the 10 weeks of lessons and I entered the Singer International Sewing Contest. I made a wonderful 4-piece wool suit with mink trim. I won for my little hometown of Guelph, Ontario, amazing to me. Then I won for Southern Ontario, my province. Then I won for the whole province. Then I won for Canada. And again, this was completely amazing to me. I went to New York City for a week, and there I competed against 4 other top singers. There was 5 of us. All the other girls were from the United States. And lo and behold, I won. My dream then, of course, was to become a fashion designer. Sewing was going to be my world and my life. Then when I was 19, I suffered a severe trauma, and my memory was completely taken from me. I didn't even know my name, let alone anything that had happened to me, and I certainly didn't have any memories of having won a sewing contest. Now my family and friends, and over the years I developed a history, but not a memory, because people told me who I was and where I went to school and things like that. I then went on and married and had a couple of sons. And when people would say to me, "Do you still sew?" I would say, "Sew? Who sews? I've got boys." So I didn't sew. The reality was, this was something I was hiding that I couldn't remember. So then years went by, I divorced, I went into broadcast, I went into finance, I became a stockbroker, and eventually I retired. And after I'd retired, or just before I retired actually, I went to a high school reunion and I met my high school sweetheart from when I was 16 years old. And he and I started going out together, and eventually we ended up as a couple. So 2 summers ago, as we're driving back and forth to our trailer, we're going by the Quilting Bee quilt shop in Fonthill, Ontario, and there's a sign out front that says, "Beginners quilting classes starting soon." And David said to me, "Why don't you go and take a quilting class?" And I said, "David, I don't sew." And he said, "Yes, you do." And I said, "David, don't do this to me. You know I don't sew, and you know why I don't sew." And he said, "Just go and take a quilting class." So I did. And I dug out the old 40-year-old Singer sewing machine and carried all that weight into a class. And of course, by the end of the first lesson, I knew I had to have a new machine. I mean, there was no needle down, there was no thread it yourself, self-threader, and of course my eyesight's bad enough now that I can't thread a needle, so I had to go out and buy a new sewing machine. Fortunately for me, the Quilting Bee in Fonthill carried domestic sewing machines, and they carried the Handy Quilter long arms. So I bought a new domestic machine first, I finished my quilt top, and I wanted to quilt it. I didn't want anybody else quilting my quilt, so I went and took a lesson on a Handy Quilter, and then I could rent time on their machine. So I rented the time and I quilted my first quilt that I'd ever made. And I was hooked. That was it. I had to have a long arm. But when I talked to David, we couldn't see how it was ever going to be in our budget because I wanted the big studio frame and everything that went with it. But a little bit of time went by and I rented again and I rented again. And I was getting better and I was becoming more and more hooked. So finally one day, about 6 or 8 months later, I went in and they were having a bit of a promotion. Sure, lo and behold, I bought the Handy Quilter long arm quilting, had it sent home. David and I put it together. But that's not the real part of this story. The real part of this story is that over the 2-year period of time since I took that first quilting lesson, I started to have memories. Real memories. Sometimes so violent, and I'm going to use the word violent because, or maybe vivid would be a better word, they would overwhelm me and all I could do was lie in bed and see these things. If you've ever seen a movie where they show people having flashbacks, that was what was happening to me. And I was remembering this sewing contest that I had entered and going to New York City. I even remember the wallpaper in the room at the Plaza Hotel. So over 2 years, I've gained memories of my own life, including the feelings, the emotions, the excitement. And I really think that it has to do with sewing and handy quilting. So here I am, 65 years old, and I'm at Handy Quilter. And now I have a new dream. And my new dream is the fusion with a Pro Stitcher. And that's my story. So this was the ad that was in the May 1964 17 magazine with me and the outfit that I made that I won this wonderful contest with. And now I've won another one for Handy Quilter.